All right. I'm sorry, I'm trying to move things around on my screen so I can see everything. Okay, Sean, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm not able to do both at the same time. So would you be able to get us started?
Yeah, sure. Well,
you.
hello, everyone. My name is Sean, and I'm currently the Treasurer Secretary for Chi Sigma Iota, Delta Iota chapter at Florida International University. Tonight is a very special event as it is dedicated to celebrating the initiation of new members and installation of new officers. To begin, I would like to speak about the history and mission of CSI. Chi Sigma Iota is the International Honor Society of Professional Counseling. It was established in 1985 through the efforts of leaders in the profession of counseling whose desire was to provide recognition for outstanding achievement, as well as outstanding service within the profession. CSI was created for counselors in training, counselor education, and professional counselors whose career commitment is to research and service through professional counseling. Our mission is to promote scholarship, research, professionalism, leadership, and excellence in counseling, and to recognize high attainment in the pursuit of academic and clinical excellence in the profession of counseling. Members are committed to maintaining high standards of professional competence and service. Our goal is to serve others to the best of our ability and to encourage others in the field of the counseling profession to do the same. Today, we invite new members into the society who share the same commitment and goals. Alrighty, candidates, applications have been reviewed and acted on favorably by the International Office of Chi Sigma Iota and the Executive Committee of this chapter. We are pleased to present these candidates as worthy membership in the Delta Iota chapter of the International Honor Society. Membership in the society will have special meaning to each of you. The common meaning, however, will be the same. You are dedicating yourself to continued excellence in both scholarship and counseling practice. As such, you ascribe to high standards of performance in all that you do. On this occasion, you are asked to publicly declare your commitment to striving for high standards of scholarship and clinical practice. If you will accept the rights and responsibilities of membership embodied in the bylaws of the society, please unmute yourself and answer, I will.
I will.
I will.
I will.
I will. I will. I will.
Alrighty. Further, you're asked if you're willing to continue encouraging excellence in the professional settings in which you work. If so, please answer, I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
All right. Finally, you are asked if you support and encourage the members and activities of this chapter and society through personal involvement in their professional programs. If so, please answer, I will.
I will.
I will.
I will. I will.
All right. Congratulations and welcome to the Delta Iota chapter of Chi Sigma Iota, Counseling and Academic Professional Honor Society International. Yay. Alrighty. So our new members are Ekaterina Alexieva, Carolyn Allen, Daisha Brown, Nadine Chivik, Francesca DeLuca, Joy Falcon, Diana Fernandez, Lisa Marie Ferrer, Vanessa Garcia, Brianna Garcia, Trinisha Hobbs, Melissa Knowles, Catherine Magoo, Camila Morales, Mahishi Pathrana, Ariana Rodriguez, Orlanes Rodriguez, Francisco Saravia, Alicia Shahid, Talisa Taliria, and Maya Zoc Obregon. Again, congratulations to each of you. And Dr. Christina is going to take over for the installation of officers.
All right, so now as we prepare to install the new officers, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our officers who have served this past year. Anna Carolina Bendick, who is president, Ty Dyer, who is president-elect, and Sean Aladdin, who is treasurer secretary. I would also like to thank the committee chairpersons for their service, Daniela Nunez as public relations chair and Alona Krieger, who is CSO representative. As the 2021-2022 chapter officers, you are charged with the care of the Delta Iota chapter. So Talisa Teleria, as president, you are responsible to organize, delegate, follow up, oversee, orchestrate, and set a tone of enthusiasm for the chapter. It is your role to motivate people, support and recognize their efforts, celebrate their successes, and enable their activities. Francesca De Luca, as president-elect, you will assist the president in performing all of their duties. You will perform the duties of president in the event of the resignation or inability to serve for health or other reasons of the president. You will serve as a member of the chapter executive committee. It is your role to become informed of the current affairs and activities of the chapter and to prepare for your upcoming term as president. And Diana Fernandez, as secretary treasurer, you are responsible to serve as a member of the chapter executive committee. It is your responsibility to attend and keep records of the executive committee and chapter business meetings. You will write and handle official correspondence as directed by the president. It is your role to maintain a file of chapter activities and pass on all relevant file materials to your successor. It is your role to assist the faculty advisor and officers in the development and administration of the annual budget, and you will maintain financial records for the chapter. Furthermore, it is your responsibility to receive and disperse chapter funds as directed by the president. On this occasion, you're asked to publicly declare your commitment to perform these duties. If it is your intent to do so, then together say, I will.
I will.
Thank you and congratulations.
Congrats, everyone. Alrighty, I'd like to invite Dr. Larry Losh, our guest speaker, to share a few words with you about counseling and professional membership. Dr. Larry C. Losh is a professor emeritus at the Department of Education at the University of Florida, having retired in 2008. He is CSI member number 3 and NCC member number 2. His professional organization presidencies include both the Florida and National Associations of the Measurement and Evaluation and Guidance, Florida Counseling Association, Southern Association of Counselor Education and Supervision, and Chi Sigma Iota International. Dr. Losh has numerous professional journal articles, book chapters, and book publications, program presentations, consultancies, and speeches. He served as a KCREP board member and was an NBCC evaluation consultant from 1980 until 2018. He was a measurement and evaluation and guidance editor and counselor education and supervision editor board member. Dr. Losh was a co-recipient of the American Counseling Association's 1983 Research Award with Dr. Jane Myers and its 1992 Arthur A. Hitchcock Distinguished Professional Service Award with Dr. Nicholas Fack. He is a 1997 charter member of CSI's Academy of Leaders and received the 1998 CSI Sweeney Professional Leadership Award. He received a 1998 Professorial Excellence Award from the University of Florida. He was a Fulbright Scholar in the Slovak Republic in 2001. In 2004, Dr. Losh was selected as a Fellow of the American Counseling Association. I'm pleased to have us joining this evening. Dr. Losh, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. It's a very minor thing, but it's pronounced lesh. Nobody cares, but it rhymes with fresh. Anyhow, that's me. I appreciate the introduction, Sean. That stuff's all very formal, and golly, I wonder sometimes who people are talking about when they read that thing. The first thing I'd like to do is to congratulate the initiates and the other members who may be attending, and say to you that I have seen this ceremony many, many times. It is relatively brief, but it is meaningful, and I hope that you'll think carefully about what you've committed yourselves to. I can't see myself on the screen. I don't know whether I'm supposed to be able to or not. Doesn't really matter, but I can. If you're like everybody else in the world watching somebody on Zoom, you're looking in the background to see what's in their home or wherever they may be talking from. And in my case, you can probably see my desk and and a picture behind me. That picture is me 45 years ago. My sister-in-law is a professional artist. She's actually an internationally renowned portrait artist, and she did that picture a long time ago. And it's a picture of my daughter, who was 7 at the time, one of my daughters and I looking at a book, and it's my prized possession. So if you wonder what's going on in the background, that's me. Sean alluded to the founding of Chi Sigma Iota, which actually started back in the mid-1980s. It was started primarily by Dr. Jane Myers and Dr. Thomas Sweeney. My wife, Barbara, is a professional calligrapher. And for a while, Jane Myers was in Gainesville. She was actually one of my doctoral students, which is how I got to know her in the first place. And while she did her master's degree in rehabilitation counseling. And Jane had started an organization called Rho Chi Sigma, and had enlisted the services of my wife, Barbara, to put the names on the certificates. In other words, she did that fancy writing that makes certificates look so nice. In a convention in 1984, Jane Myers and Tom Sweeney invited my wife Barbara and I to go to dinner with them, which we like to do anyhow. At that point, they proposed the formation of Chi Sigma Iota. The idea was that it was basically roughly based on the ideas of Rho Chi Sigma, but in this case with more of an emphasis on acknowledgement of high professional standards and high academic performance, and for lack of a better term, excellence. And so that's pretty much where it came from. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this because I can't see my own screen, but I'm going to put this up. I don't know if you can see that picture or not. Can people see that? Does anybody see that? Okay. That's a picture of the original Chi Sigma Iota Executive Committee in 1985. That's a bunch of old folks. Tom Sweeney, Dr. B. Worley, Dr. Jane Myers, and Dr. Chuck Lewis from the American Counseling Association. So that's the history of some of the history of it. What I want to talk a little bit about is the relationship of Chi Sigma Iota to the American Counseling Association. Obviously, they are closely aligned philosophically, but they're not in any way technically connected. Dr. Sweeney is always fond of saying that Chi Sigma Iota is not a division of the American Counselor Association, but if it was, it would be the largest division. And what that means is that there are thousands of CSI members out there in the world today. Most of them still very active professionally. So it is not a small group, it's actually a very large group. Within that, the organization tries to do lots of things and to involve as many people as possible. The part that I want to focus on for y'all in particular is that Chi Sigma Iota is a membership organization in one sense. And what I mean by that is you have to be invited to be a member of Chi Sigma Iota. You don't just walk in the door and say, here's my money, I want to be a member. You have to be invited. In order to be invited, you have to have done something significant and also noteworthy. And so for the new initiates, that means that you've been recognized by the people in your program, your faculty, your peers, and so forth, for being a good person, for being a good student. And that's really kind of neat. That's something you really ought to be proud of, because acknowledgement by your peers and your supervisors and faculty is really very, very special. Not everybody gets in. The other side of it is the CSI is an honorary organization. It's an organization that was literally created to bring honor to people who were the members. So I hope you'll keep that in mind. And when you go to sleep tonight, feel pretty good about yourself because you did something really kind of neat. I'd like to move on now to what I think are some of the attributes, if you will, or the, that's not the right word, what CSI is all about and why you were selected to become a member. And I think one way to do that is to look at the seal of CSI. The seal is blue and white. I assume you've seen that somewhere along the line. If not, go online and it's on there. The white on the seal stands for virtue. And virtue is one of those strange things that's a little hard to figure out. If you ask somebody, are you virtuous? Some people kind of shy away and slink off, and a lot of people say, oh yes, I'm virtuous. And so the question is, are you virtuous? Would you like to be virtuous? But if you say yes to that, then you have to think about what being virtuous means to you. And it means different things to different people. Excuse me. In general, many people associate being virtuous with a religious connotation, and that's fine. Other people go a little different route, and they consider it entirely a moral perspective, and that's okay too. But the basic idea is that being virtuous can be defined as having moral excellence. And that may not sound like much, but that's really quite an accomplishment. It means that you look at the world and those who are in it in ways that treat them with honor, treat them with dignity, treat them with respect, treat them with caring, all those kinds of good things. So being virtuous means that you act or manifest behaviors that allow you to be good to others. I don't know how else to say it. It's pretty simple, but that's what it comes down to. Excuse me. Within our profession, virtue means acting and doing things that are inherently right and just. So virtue is not just what you say. Virtue is how you act. And other people will judge whether you are virtuous or not. Excuse me. I will suggest to you, however, that being virtuous is situational. Nobody is virtuous all the time. It's a fleeting phenomena at many times. The real question is, when will you be virtuous, and will you be virtuous when you need to be virtuous? I don't have an answer for that. You have to answer that. The blue on the CSI stands for trustworthiness. For trustworthiness, that's a word we use a lot in our professions. Generally, we think about it in terms of confidentiality and ethical behavior. Certainly, confidentiality is one of the primary ethics by which counselors operate. And that's good. That's good stuff. But there's another aspect of trustworthiness that's often overlooked. And that is what I call the collegial aspect of trustworthiness. You learn a lot about how to be trustworthy with your counselees. Nobody talks to you much about, at least I don't think they do, talk to you much about how to be trustworthy with your colleagues and peers. And that's a tough thing because it's different. It's not the same. So I would encourage you to ask yourself, who among your associates, your peers, your friends, and even your professors, do you really trust? And that's not easily answered. Not all professors are trustworthy. I can guarantee you that. There are times in my life where, unfortunately, I wasn't trustworthy. I tried not to make that a habit, but generally speaking, it happens. So who do you trust? Who do you think you can trust? You say, most people say, well, I have friends I can trust. Well, what does that mean? It means I can tell them something. Well, yeah, that's good, but that's a small part of it. Who are the people that are going to stand up for you when you need to be stood up for? Who are the people that really have earned your sense of personal trust? Another side of that is who can really trust you? And that's a tough question to answer. Again, it's situational or limited. Not everybody can trust you. And I would suggest that not everybody wants to trust you, nor do you want everybody to trust you. People have to earn your trust, just like you have to earn other people's trust. Let me give an example of what I call professional trust among colleagues. I alluded earlier to the dinner meeting that we had that really led to the start of Chi Sigma Iota. After that meeting, I went back to my office here at the university, and my department chairman was there, and he was my best friend in the world. He's since died, but he was my best friend in the world. And we did a lot of things together. We liked each other, yada, yada, yada. Much like me, he was a morning person. He was always up bright and early and so forth. So when I'd get to the office early in the morning, usually he would be there early in the morning. And it came to us, Dr. Myers, Dr. Sweeney, and me and the other members of the board, that we're going to need some money to start Chi Sigma Iota. And we didn't know exactly who was going to give it to us. So Dr. Sweeney, Dr. Myers, and I said that we would each chip in $100 to start the organization. And then we said we were going to try and get other people to chip in. So one morning I go into the office, my friend and boss is in there working at his desk, and he's got papers out there and he's doing something. And I don't know exactly what he was doing. I walked up to him and I said, Joe, I need $100. I said, it's for a professional activity and it's a good thing. And back in that day, people had checkbooks. We didn't have all these credit cards and Venmo and all that stuff. He pulls his checkbook out of a drawer and he writes me a check for $100. He hands it to me and goes back to working on whatever he's working on. So later, after my class, I saw him again. He said, what was that $100 for? Now that's trust. He trusted me that if I told him it was for a good professional purpose, he could count on it being so. And so he was one of the initial financial contributors to Chi Sigma Iota. Okay, the wreath in CSI stands for honor. And honor indicates that we should act in honorable ways. I don't know exactly what that is. I hope maybe y'all do. Certainly an honorable person is one who believes in truth and doing the right thing. The hard part is, what is the truth and what is the right thing to do? Those questions, I think, must be answered on an individual basis. Generally speaking, we cannot let other people tell us what exactly is the right thing to do. Now, that seems somewhat contradictory because we've got professional ethics and all kinds of guidelines and standards and everything else. But when it comes down to it, the end is you have to decide what is the honorable thing for you to do. I think one of the problems with honor is that people confuse the idea of acting honorably with being honored. There are a whole lot of people that wander around the world just trying to see how many accolades they can accumulate. If you want to do that, that's fine. Actually, they're relatively easy to get. But that's different from acting honorably. The goal is really not to engage what are really rather minor accomplishments in the grand scheme of things to accumulate those honors. The goal is to act in ways that you will be perceived as a person of honor. And that's something you have to do, have to think about in order to act that way. The philosopher Cato wrote, and I always thought this one was rather interesting, I would rather men, they didn't talk about women back then, I would rather men should ask why no statue has been erected in my honor than why one has. Well, that's really quite insightful. I'm going to move on now to a little bit of another topic. I'm hoping that if you have questions, you'll raise them or hold them to the end or whatever. I mean, it's fine with me if you have questions along the way. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about being in a professional, maintaining professional involvements. And I think that's something that is certainly beneficial, but it's also somewhat difficult. As a student or a new professional, that kind of stuff really doesn't come up too much. You think, well, I've got all these other things to do, and I'm not going to worry about that right at the moment. I want to encourage you to take a little bit different tact on that and think about it. And in fact, write it down or record it someplace. The first thing I think you should think about is, how much of my time am I willing to commit to professional activities outside of my professional job? In other words, when you become an acting professional, become a counselor or whatever you're going to do, there will be a set of professional responsibilities that go along with it. They may be in a job description, may not be. They may be within a standard set of hours, or they may not be. But whatever your job is, there is a set of responsibilities that go along with doing that. I think a professional should go beyond that. I think professionals should be involved in a variety of professional activities. There are plenty out there. The first question is, how many do you want to be involved in? And the second question, which I think is probably more important, is how much time do you want to devote to those activities? And that's not an easy question to answer, because you can devote a lot of time, you can devote a little time, you can say that you're going to devote a certain amount of time and then not have the time to devote, so forth and so on. Excuse me. Second thing you have to figure out is, how is that going to relate to your professional and personal relationships? Being a professional, being dedicated, if you will, to what you do is very noble. But there is a price to be paid for it in your relationships with others, both close relationships and somewhat distant relationships, peer relationships, or friends. The more you devote to your profession, the less you're able to devote to these other people in your life. So I think it's important that you figure out what kind of commitments you're going to make and how that's going to affect your personal relationships. And I would suggest to you that if it's going to affect them drastically or too much, don't do the professional activities. Personal relationships are important. Third, and this is even tougher, figure out how much money you're going to spend on your professional, what I call professionally related activities. Many of the involvements have costs affiliated with them. If you're going to go to a professional meeting, for example, or if you're going to go to a convention or a conference or a continuing education activity or something like that, there's a cost involved. And so how much money are you going to devote to those kinds of activities? I can guarantee you that it will increase over the years, but then again, presumably so will whatever it is you're being paid. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. But there is a financial obligation involved. Most counselors don't work in situations where their employer, whoever that may be, is going to pay for participation in profession-related activities. That's unfortunate, but it's the nature of our profession. Excuse me. Let me give you a very personal example of how you look at, one way to look at or figure out how your professional commitments are going to fit in your life. I have been married twice. The first time, not a long time. The second time, when I was dating my wife, Barbara, I told her that, look, I go to professional conventions every year. I go to the American Counseling Association convention, and I go to the Florida, at that time, Florida Personnel and Guidance Association convention every year. And I did for over 40 years. And I said, so look, that's a big thing for me. It costs money. I said, short of keeping food out of the kids' mouths, I'm going. She said, that's fine, I'll go with you. And she did for all those years. And so, you know, we just decided together that that was kind of a priority in our lives. We made nice vacations out of it too, but we made that our priority in lives. That's important. Money is important. For example, one of the things that often happens is that people get initiated into CSI and they pay the initial dues and all that kind of stuff. And then they graduate or whatever, and they don't stay a member. And I, at least in terms of financially contributing member, I think that's a shame for several reasons. Number one, it's not good for the organization. It's not good for CSI. They need the money just like a lot of other organizations do. Secondly, I think it's important to stay connected to something that I hope is important to you. Again, I'm talking about the idea of commitment. And yeah, you may not have time to be actively involved in the CSI activities that are going on at the time, but they're going on all over the place. So wherever you set yourself down, so to speak, when you settle down a little bit in life, there's a CSI chapter around, there are CSI activities going on. Keep them up. I just think it's a good thing to do. Another thing I think you should do, and again, there's a cost involved in this. I have long been an advocate of getting every kind of professional credential you can get. Become a national certified counselor, get licensed if you can, get whatever certifications you can get, so forth and so on. I don't think a professional can ever have too many credentials. And one of the reasons I say that is because your strength as a professional is in large part determined by your credibility. The more credentials you have, the better your credibility. Now, I want to throw in the caveat that there are some credentials that are worth a lot and some that aren't. You can buy plaques and diplomas and everything else if you want to go that route. But I'm talking about the kind that are easily recognized as professional credentials. And I think you should get as many of those as you can. Part of the reason that I advocate, well, I should say the other part of that I should talk about a little bit is memberships. I think you should be a member of the American Counseling Association. I think it's a wonderful organization. I think it's the one that, if you will, speaks for us all. They do good things in the world in general, not always, but most of the time. I think you should be a member of your state organization, state council organization. In Florida, of course, it's the Florida Counseling Association, but in other states, they have somewhat similar names. State involvements are really kind of neat. You get a lot of connections around the state. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, part of those professional involvements is maintenance of a sense of commitment to what it is that you're trying to do, to being a good professional, if you will. One of the biggest things biggest problems that we have in the counseling profession, and I'm sure you've all read and know about burnout. It's a big problem. Burnout's a big problem. There is not much that's easy about what we do as counselors. You know, I used to tell my students that nobody comes to a counselor to tell them that, hey, their life is great, they're making more money than they need, they have a great sex life, they have more friends. Nobody goes to a counselor saying that kind of stuff. People come to counselors because they have problems. And those problems are difficult to deal with, and they're emotionally taxing for the counselor. So a lot of people get, quote unquote, burnt out because they can't take it over time. I'm not criticizing them for that. I'm just saying that that's a reality of our profession. One of the ways to avoid or to alleviate the burnout phenomenon is to maintain your sense of commitment to what it is that you're starting out to do. The other thing that you get out of professional involvements is some damn good friends. You meet some really neat people out there in the world. People who establish collegial relationships with people who understand what you're doing, what you're trying to do, what's difficult about what you do, so forth and so on. You just make a lot of good friends. Related to that is involvement in those organizations is a primary way of continuing to learn about your profession in general, and who knows what else. If you look at the conference schedules for, say, the American Counseling Association, whenever they're going to have one again, it's an unbelievable list of all the different kinds of things that people in our profession are interested in. It's a nice way to go learn something. Sometimes you learn something that you don't really want to know, but that's okay. You learn lots of different stuff. I can remember I walked into a lot of counseling, a lot of conference sessions, a lot of conference sessions, and I walked out after 10 minutes. I don't really want to listen to this. Okay, that's all right. It's just the time. Attending conferences and being involved in professional organization activities is also a type of vacation. It's a way to get away from the routine of what we do every day, of the kinds of things that we have to work with and contend with. Make it a nice thing. And finally, it's a way to network with people of a like mind, and sometimes people not of a like mind, and you can learn a lot from them too. But being involved in those kinds of activities at the local, state, regional, national level is an opportunity to interact with people who at least begin to understand what you do in life. And there are not a whole lot of people around that can do that. You know, for example, I mean, this is a personal complaint of mine, but I always got tired of listening to people that said, oh, professors only work 6 hours a week. Oh, they only work, 8 hours. The same thing they say about all kinds of teachers. Oh, they only work 7 hours a day or something like that. Well, obviously that's nonsense, but a lot of people don't realize that it is nonsense. So it's nice to associate and affiliate with people who know what's going on. The last thing I want to talk about, the last area I want to talk about today is the what I call personal development. Again, I'm not I'm not meaning to be a prophet of doom, but I know that our profession is hard. It's tough to be a counselor, and I admire greatly the people who do the work. So in that context, I think it's important for counselors to take care of themselves. Now, within CSI in particular, there's been a lot of talk over the years and a lot of writing about the concept of wellness. And in part, large part, that was started by Jane Myers, who got interested in the whole idea of wellness and taking care of oneself. And it was later supported by lots of other people. If you look back in the Chi Sigma Iota literature and conference presentations and so forth, there's a lot of stuff about wellness. And that's a good thing. I mean, I think that's a nice idea. Basically, wellness means taking care of oneself. Okay. But I don't know exactly what that means. So there are different aspects of it. One aspect of it is taking care of oneself professionally. And that's what I was talking about in the previous comments I made. There are lots of different ways to do that. It's something that you have to do intentionally, but taking care of yourself professionally is important. There's also the idea of taking care of oneself physically. I don't want to comment about all that. Different people have different ideas of what it means to take care of themselves physically. Some do it through nutrition, some do it through physical exercise, some do it through mental activities, et cetera, and some people do it through all of those different ways. But it is necessary to take care of yourself physically as well as mentally. The problem that we have, again, as I said before, in our lives is as counselors, is that there are a lot of stressors. And so trying to get rid of the stressors is a big deal. And again, I alluded to some of the different ways people tried to do that. But I want to talk to you now about something that's a little bit different. The whole idea of leisure. And leisure is not something that most people think about very much. I can share with you that back in the late 1970s and the early 1980s, I got into leisure. And I don't mean playing around all the time. I mean, I got into it as a professional focus. And I was really quite interested in it. And I had begun to write about it, wrote a book about it, did some other stuff in that regard. Depending on how one looks at it, my life took a different tactic when I got involved with the National Board for Certified Counselors, because the work that I was doing for them was so, just took over my life, so to speak, my professional life. So the whole leisure thing went out the window. But I'd like to go back to it a little bit because I thought it was important, and I still think it's important. What we have in our society and certainly in our profession is an emphasis on work. Everybody talks about work. When you meet somebody, you don't ask them, how do you play? You ask them, what do you do? What do you do for a living? And somehow we make judgments about people based on whatever the response is. But that speaks to the preeminence of work as a topic and an importance in our lives. The vocational focus, for example, has been, is historically incredibly prominent in counseling. And in fact, the American Counseling Association grew out of the National Vocational Guidance Association. If you're so inclined and you want to go look up the history of American Counseling Association, way back when in the 40s, they started talking about work, because work was what everybody thought about, what everybody worried about, so forth and so on. It's been prominent in almost everything that counselors do. Well, that's okay, except that I think that leisure is important too. And I actually think it's as important. Now, one of the first things you notice about leisure is that it's one of those words that violates the I before E except after C rule. Okay? So it's a little bit unique even in the way it's presented. Is leisure important? Yeah. Even Aristotle said the goal of all human behavior, the end toward which all action is directed. That's what he described as leisure. The leisure is the action toward which all is directed. Well, that's really kind of neat. It's a little different. Now, I don't know how Aristotle made a living, but apparently he had time to think about it that way. Leisure has primarily been defined in terms of time. The time when you're not working or doing other duties. That's what the Cambridge Dictionary says. Time away from unpleasant or disagreeable obligation. That's what Britannica says. One of the ones that started interest in leisure was by Thorsten Veblen. And Thorsten said that leisure is the non-productive use of time. And there was a lot of reaction to that. Thorsten Veblen was an economist and a sociologist. And in 1899, he wrote a book called The Theory of the Leisure Class. And the theory of leisure class is about economics. It's not about leisure. He called the leisure class the people who are wealthy enough so that they didn't have to work the way the rest of us do. But he brought up some ideas about the benefits of not having to work all the time in a life and death struggle. So he gets some credit for the idea of leisure. It's okay to think of leisure as time, but I have a simpler definition. Leisure is an activity engaged in strictly for personal enjoyment. What do you do that makes you feel good? And yeah, our work should make us feel good. Our interactions with others should make us feel good. But ask yourself, what do you do just because you like doing it? Just because it's for you. It's a very self-centered kind of thing. There have been theories of leisure, just like there are counseling theories and vocational counseling theories and all that kind of stuff. There are theories of leisure. Most of them are not particularly specific, but there is one that I like, two that I like. There are actually two views of leisure. There is, one is called the Spillover conceptualization of leisure. And that suggests that satisfying leisure activities are those that are similar to the ones that a person might enjoy in his or her work. So for example, if you're a computer programmer, maybe you enjoy playing chess because there's a lot of similarities in the type of thinking and activity involved. That's called the spillover hypothesis. The compensatory hypothesis says that you pick something that is radically different from what you do in your vocational activities. So if you have a relatively sedentary work, you do something that's active. On a very personal level, for many years, for 14 years, I was a softball umpire for adult and junior softball leagues. It got me outside. I got running around. I liked it. I had a good time with it. Radically different from being a college professor. So that's an example of a compensatory types of leisure. And either one's okay. There's no better or worse. They're just different. And in fact, most people have a little bit of both, and that's okay too. Now, choosing your what leisure might be beneficial to you is much like some of the other stuff that I've been talking about. My whole theme tonight is to be planful, to think about what it is that you're going to do and how you want to live your life. So when it comes to leisure, you have the same kinds of things. You need to do a little self-assessment. And again, one of the biggies is how much time are you going to have for leisure? How much? I don't know. How much you're going to work? I don't. You know, that's on a very, very individual basis. You got to eat. You got to work. You got to sleep. You got to be involved in professional activities. Then there needs to be some time left for your own personal leisure. Whatever it is, you have to answer that for yourself. The second thing, much like professional activities, how are your leisure activities going to affect your personal relationships? Are your leisure activities going to be something that you can share and engage in with people who are close to you? Or are there something that are going to be separate and you're going to be somehow, not so nice way of saying it, distant from those who are close to you while you're engaging in your leisure activities? Again, that's something for you to figure out. A third thing is figuring out what your physical attributes are and how they align with your leisure. I loved being an umpire, but I got old and I couldn't run around anymore. It was that simple. So I had to stop and do other things. So whatever your leisure, whatever your physical attributes are, that's something you need to think about too. And again, the whole idea of money comes into play, much like your professional activities. How much money are you going to spend on leisure activities? I know, for example, that although I never started it, I would have loved snow skiing. The whole idea of snow skiing has tremendous appeal to me. But as you know, if you live in Florida, snow skiing is a very expensive activity. I mean, you got to go far away from here at some expense to engage in snow skiing. So I was never able to start that, although I think I would have liked it. And I would encourage you to share the things that result from your self-assessment or planning in regard to your leisure activities. Share those with others. Why is it important for you to have such and such a leisure activity? Discuss it. How much commitment are you going to make? What's it going to mean to relationships and all that kind of stuff? So, as Walt Whitman said, do anything but let it bring joy. That's what life is all about. I'm closing up here. Basically, what I want to say is that people in our profession, people in our profession, we spend the vast majority of our time thinking about others. That's what counseling is all about. Not about us. It's about thinking about others. Sometimes it's about thinking about our colleagues in order to be better counselors, so forth and so on. What I want to encourage you to do is to think about yourself. Think about yourself. plan for what your life is going to be. Because I want you to own your life. Don't let other pressures and so forth and so on. You figure out what you want to be and you figure out how to get there. So that's my goal for the day. And in summary, I would say, don't let life just happen to you. Make your life what you want it to be. I thank you for the opportunity to be with you this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lesh, for inspiring us to continue to engage in professional membership and all the work that you've done for the profession. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today to recognize excellence among our members. Please join me one more time in a round of applause on behalf of the new members of our chapter.
I also wanted to take a minute. Our current president popped in. She was at work today and couldn't join us right away. So I wanted to introduce Carolina Bendick. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to share.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carolina, and yes, well, actually, I'm still at work. So I can relate a little bit what I heard, what Dr. Larry was saying, that it is a lot of stressful environment, but at the end, we are helping people, we are helping the community, and I believe we all joined this profession in that same idea of wanting to help others within mental health. I want to congratulate all the new members. It's a great community, not only to network, but also to get to know people, to distract. I know with COVID, it has been difficult to do events, but I know we've all tried and Sean has been here for a while. We try our best to engage the community, to help the community, and to also educate people about mental health. And I just want to congratulate all of you to joining, and I wish you the best in future studies and in future work as well.
Thank you. And all of you, I know that we will be on campus in the not too distant future. You all can find me and I will have your pins and certificates and everything for you. Does anybody else want to share or speak or anything before we go for the evening? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo some of the comments. I thought your talk was very insightful, Larry, and I appreciate you making the comments. And Tom Sweeney was our first inaugural speaker at our first Chi Sigma initiation. So it was kind of nice to see that picture. And I guess that ages me too, but that's okay. But a couple things I thought you brought up that were important were, the cost of professional organizations. We get invited into a lot of them and they're great to belong to, but sometimes at the end of the year when I'm doing my taxes and I look at all the organizations I belong to and the price to maintain those and maintaining some of the certifications and licenses. And then the other thing I thought was excellent was about leisure time. I think it's really important to have some passion and some interest outside of work. I'm a competitive tennis player. I've done that my whole life. And I work my work schedule around that. It's important for me to still engage in that. Like Larry, I probably can't get down on the ground or bend as much as I like to on the court anymore. I can't imagine being an umpire for softball, but I think it's important to make time for that. And, sometimes it's easy to fit in another client, stay an extra hour at work, but we have to take care of ourselves too. If our cup's empty, we can't pour from it to help others. So I thought there were a lot of really good takeaway messages today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you all for attending. Congratulations again, and thank you so much, Dr. Lesh, for joining us.
Quite welcome, I enjoyed it.
Remember to fill out your evaluation, everyone. I put the link in the chat, so please take a couple minutes to do that or copy it and do it later. Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.